to it fast. Right here on the Anycast. Make it strong, make it last. Right here on the Anycast.
All right, I'm here today with an OG podcaster, geeky musician, family man, doer of all things. I'm running out of the right intro words here, but the one and the only Dave Hamilton. Dave, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the Anycast, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
It's probably been a long time coming, but I mean, it only took me 20 years to actually have a podcast. So
that's okay.
In 2 minutes or less, who are you? Where did you come from? What are you promoting? And then everybody can fast forward 2 minutes and skip all that.
Yeah, I'm Dave Hamilton. I am a podcaster and publisher. I started in the online industry when we created the Mac Observer in 1998. That was acquired in 2021. In that period of time, I also started the podcast that I do. Well, all three of them, in fact, Mac Geek Gab, Business Brain, and Gig Gab, each for geeks, business nerds, and music nerds. So tech geeks. Yep. And then a company called Backbeat Media, which, as I like to say, represents the sponsorships for a group of fiercely independent podcasters, of which I am one.
There you go. Okay. That is definitely not what I would have said. So I'm glad you said it instead of me. There's so many places I'd like to dig into. I'm going to stick with our podcasting track here. Have you noticed as podcasting has gotten more mainstream that there has been a noticeable shift in one direction or the other generally in production quality?
The shows I listen to, I think all sound pretty good.
And always have.
Yeah, and always have. But I think maybe that speaks to, well, I don't want to listen to crappy audio. Like, I'll forgive it if it's, somebody's got a guest on that I want to hear from and the guest chose to use their laptop from across the room. And it's like, okay, I got to, just fight through this. But it's exhausting. Yeah. Good audio is not exhausting. So
fair to say the audio is important to you. Well,
it is.
Yeah. There has to be more to the magic formula that gets a show going this long. Viewer questions obviously were the original secret sauce.
That was it. Still is the secret sauce. Yeah. Well, it's some way of engaging with the community, and it can be certainly answering people's tech questions is it turns out a pretty easy way to get people to love you and feel connected to you. But there are other ways, right? Like with we do this with Mac Geek Gab. We also do this with Gig Gab, where we have a community on Gig Gabs is on Facebook. Mac Geek Gabs is in Discord. I love Discord so much more than Facebook for that because you get to control your own community. You're not just managing somebody else's group. But just finding a way to make your audience feel like the show is theirs is a great way to keep people sticking around. And one of those ways is like a Patreon style thing too. If people give you money, if you can get to a point where you can convince people to give you money to support the show, at that moment that they give you the money, they have just like doubled their emotional investment in your show because they've sent money to you.
You have Patreon today?
Well, yes and no. We don't use Patreon because my career is full of things that I created is the wrong word, created for myself and never thought to share with anybody else. Like at Mac Observer, I wrote our first content management system from like scratch in PHP. If I was smarter, I would have sold that and then I'd be on my private island instead of in New Hampshire. It's nice in New Hampshire though. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
So we cooked up our own, listener support system, which now is all tied into WordPress for us. But if I was going to do it again today, I'd use Patreon because it's turnkey. I don't have to create it.
Where are we in the life cycle of podcasting? Are we still early? Are we in the middle?
I think we're still early. And I say that because there's so many people that still don't listen to podcasts regularly, right? And I think radio will eventually lose out. Talk radio will eventually lose out to podcasting. just like music radio has lost out to the streaming services. And again, I realize there's a lot of people that still listen to terrestrial radio, but there's a lot of people that still don't listen to podcasts. There's also a lot of brands, companies, marketers that have yet to dip their toes into advertising on podcasts. And one thing that I can say with a great deal of confidence, and I know there's others out there that say it too, podcasting is one of, if not the best way of getting a message across, of advertising a message, because of what we talked about. People choose to listen to a specific host, and if that host then comes and says, go check this thing out, and does it with sincerity and all the other things we talked about, that's one of the, other than word of mouth, it's effectively word of mouth, right? You know, and it happens on radio too. Like, you know, I know people say, you know, the Talking Points ad model is the NPR model. I call it the Howard Stern model. I think of 1-800-Dial-A-Mattress or whatever the heck the thing was, right?
Yeah.
Like he would do those reads. Here I am, 40 years later? And I remember a name of a sponsor? That's insane. I never bought a mattress from him, but that's because I was 15 years old. Like wasn't my call. But like, you know, so I think we're still in the early phases, but we might be getting to a point where we're tipping from early to, you know, early middle.
As we do that transition into early middle, let's go 5 years in the future. That takes us to 2030 ish. How do you envision where podcasting is then? And or specifically the fiercely independent podcasters, where is that side of the movement in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, if we look at the first 20 years, it started as only fiercely independent. So 100% of the market was fiercely independent podcasters because it was the only way that was going to happen. Now it's probably a minority of the market, right? It's probably 30% of the market. I do know that is the 30% of the market. Well, the segment of fiercely independent podcasters who have audiences larger than, say, 10,000, you know, listeners an episode. So we're narrowing it way down. That's not 30% of the market. That's probably 5% of the market. But I know that is a hugely valuable part of the market for sponsors. I think that group gets more than their share of the sponsorship dollars because of that relationship that the listener and the host have, right? It's, you know, you listen to a show like, say, the New York Times The Daily, right? Even when it was only Michael Barbaro hosting that show, he wasn't the one reading all the ads. He was at the very beginning, and then it was like, oh, we can just have a producer do it. Like, it's totally fine. And I suppose it is totally fine, but that changes that dynamic. It's no longer the person you chose to listen to telling you about the ads. In fact, it's a person saying, let's take a break while somebody else tells you about the ads. It's like, it seems crazy to me. So I think there will always be a place for the fiercely independent podcaster who can carve out their own corner of the market. And there are lots of corners to be carved out. I think that will always be true. But it's even today, and certainly in 5 years, it's not going to be as easy as it once was. And that's true for me too. The shows I started 10 years ago are nowhere near the size of the show I started 20 years ago.
In most things, including business and probably including that in building fans, like the early returns compound.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just now starting to see with Gig Gab, and the format of the show changed dramatically this year too. But like this year, we doubled our listenership with that show. Right. And it was like, okay. But I think part of that is the longevity and part of that is the format change. I don't think either one gets all the credit.
All right. Well, Dave, thank you for your time.
Thanks.
This was entertaining and informative as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What a blast. I appreciate you having me on the show. So yeah, thanks very much, Matt.
Thanks, Dave.
This is different, another round, so much more to talk about. Gonna aim to satisfy with help from CacheFly. Get to it fast. Right here on the Anycast. Make it strong, make it last. Right here on the Anycast. The Anycast podcast, brought to you by CacheFly.